Hi, welcome back to the Twin Cities Film Fest presented by Stearns Bank. I'm your host, Brianna, and here on the red carpet with me is the director and actor from Sheepdog. And the writer, director, and actor. We got triple threat right here, Stephen Grayhm, and then our actor, Matt Dallas. So first of all, welcome, and thank you for coming to the Twin Cities Film Fest.
It's a pleasure.
So we're going to just jump right into it. My first question is going to be for you. What inspired you to tell this story, and why was it important for you to tell this story?
Sure. So what originally inspired the story was in 2010, my car broke down 3 hours north of Los Angeles, and the local tow truck driver that picked me up had opened up to me about his journey and his plight as a veteran on that 3-hour drive into Los Angeles. And during that time, he had expressed all the hardships that he had experienced, both in his military service, in his marriage, being a father. And then, he opened up about all the medication that he was on through the VA. And when I got back to LA, I couldn't get him out of my mind. And I knew that there had to be more people like him. And so we set out that summer on a road trip to answer that question. And from the very first veteran that we met with, it became deeply personal, and that was 2010-11. So 13 years later, here we are.
Yeah. Well, that actually rolled right into my next question,
Sure.
Which was, what type of research were you doing, and what were you speaking with other veterans to tell their stories? And this is really as both a writer, director, and as an actor. What kind of research were you doing, both as an actor too, to portray these stories the way they needed to be told?
So that's a very timely question, being that we do have veterans here in the house that, off camera here, we have Harley Capps. Hey, Ken. Harley's a Marine Corps veteran. Ken is an Army veteran. And it really took people in the community to trust us, to tell us the most intimate details, both of combat, but in their own personal lives, things that had not been shared with their therapists, with their spouses, with their friends, maybe even with other veterans. And that was an incredible responsibility for us. And it was our North Star that carried us for the last 13 years here into Minneapolis. To be able to reunite with them here it's a fairy tale. And we're so grateful for that. But we also took that responsibility very seriously, and our hope tonight is to be able to share this beautiful and timely film with them, both to let them know how much their story meant to us, how much it's going to mean to other people, and we hope that experience spreads across the country for those that have experienced very similar things in their plight as a military veteran.
That's quite the answer to follow.
Sure.
But yeah, I will say that, especially as an actor and with independent filmmaking, there's usually very little time to prepare for a role. You might have a few weeks, if you're lucky, maybe a month or two, to try and get as much research as possible done. This film, because of the journey that we've been on over the past 13 years, we've been fortunate to sit in front of hundreds of veterans and their families and hear the stories. So I think that, for me, like Stephen said, it became a very personal story, and especially being to sit across from so many, you see their lives in such a more, a really authentic and genuine way, and to see what their day-to-day is like, and everything that's sort of led up to that moment, and everything that's leading them propelling them into the future. And so to be able to see it on such a deep level was really an exceptional and special experience.
So it really feels like this movie was a very collaborative process as far as the creation of these characters and doing the research and the stories. Can you talk a little bit more about how that collaboration evolved the characters in the story? Because obviously you weren't just depicting one person for each character.
So, this movie is a culmination of the countless hours that I spent working at the VA in Detroit, where I was able to role play with neuropsychologists, neurosurgeons, trauma therapists. It's also a culmination of the countless years that were spent with veterans in their living rooms, sleeping in their attics, in my car, whoever would speak to me. The development, the script was always a living and breathing thing. And you kind of, as a writer, you get to a place sometimes where, you know, I think of it as like Neo in the Matrix, where he like discovers, he's like, whoa, I know Kung Fu. Where I got to a place where I was so immersed in the veteran community that I was able to write things and almost like you get to pull from your toolbox, you know, something that maybe 4 years ago that was shared with you, and you just kind of never know where it's going to come. The script itself, though, was a living and breathing thing where as we got older, you know, this, when we say this is a 13-year journey, there were so many false starts. There was like, you know, we had been fighting tooth and nail for years. Hollywood did not want to make this movie. They thought, they genuinely felt like, you know, that there is not a market for this. We felt obviously very differently about that, and we're going to prove that, you know, in the coming months to the whole country, well, to Hollywood on behalf of the country. But the development of it was like, as we got older as actors, you know, the characters got older. And so, you know, you know, there was a version of the screenplay where my character did not have a family, did not have children, and it was only about 3 or 4 years ago that I introduced that element. Matt gained 47 pounds to play this character. You'll see a very different Matt on screen. I think I'm about 10 pounds lighter on screen because his character was eating his pain, and my character, being a recluse in the beginning of the story, was someone who health and fitness and whatnot was just not a focus. And so we stayed true to that all the way to the first day of filming, of where we saw these characters. And I'll just say really quickly, what makes Sheepdog unique to any other film of this genre is that it's the first film that not only explores the, you know, emotional and psychological repercussions of trauma, but it has a focus on post-traumatic growth. And further to that, our story picks up where our main characters are about 8 or 9 years after their last deployment. And we haven't seen that story, because for a lot of veterans, that's where the journey's just beginning. And so it was important to us to tell that story, to give a voice to those that have felt like they haven't had one.
So obviously mental health is a huge theme in this movie. As far as the timing of this movie, throughout the last few years, we've seen a huge growth in the acceptance of having these conversations really openly. We speak about mental health crisis more efficiently, more openly. And since you began this project 13 years ago to now, there even has been a big change even in those 13 years. So can you talk a little bit about how you were, I guess, approaching the subject of mental health in this movie?
I mean, I'll start with it, but you know, I learned really early that most veterans, and I want to be careful that I'm not speaking on behalf of all, but most veterans were put off by the term "thank you for your service," and it felt like a slight. It felt like a hollow gesture. And I would constantly say to veterans, "You have no idea the courage it takes for a civilian to come up to you and even say that." And I said, "Well, what would you rather hear?" And they said, "Just ask me how I'm doing." And so when we talk about mental health, it's so simple. How are you? How are you doing? And really want to know the answer to that, you know? And I feel like that's why, you know, in our experience anyway, in our journey, where so many veterans felt marginalized because they were so separated from the community and the country as a whole that they fought so honorably for, that they were sent to foreign countries, put into the most terrible situations in combat, the most stressful, and then brought back home, and within a week, you know, you return your weapon and you're put back out there to go work at a pizzeria, or, you know, hey, why can't John get a job or something? And your mind and your soul is back with your guys, you know, where you were. And so there was a delicate tightrope to walk on this, of addressing the mental health, trying to make a film that was both educational and entertaining, but also pulled no punches. And I genuinely believe that we accomplished that with this film.
So I have another question for you. How has playing this role changed you as a person? This was a long project, so you've been working on this for 13 years now. This is kind of the culmination of that. How has this character changed you, and any of your views like on the military, our veterans?
Yeah. So I'll say when I first came onto this project, I was pretty naive to this entire world. I don't come from a big military family. My grandfather was in the Navy, but it was something that he never really spoke about. So I just honestly was very just uneducated or unaware. But like Steven said, when we set out on our first road trip back in 2011, it really did take sitting down with our first veteran for it to become very personal, because it was being awakened to an experience or something that's like millions of people were going through that I was completely oblivious to. And I think over the past 13, 14 years now, it has, changed me in that it's like beyond the like sort of like compassion and awareness that I've gained. It really is an awareness for mental health or struggles in trauma or any of that. And so I think now, just even as a person, as an artist, any of that, I think it's completely transformed me.
Did you have anything to add to that? I guess same question as an actor, as a writer. How has this project changed you?
Oh, this is a big one to unpack. So I'll try to just give you this abridged. This endeavor broke me in half, and the only thing which I didn't know until we made the movie that was ever going to heal me, as whether it's as an artist or a human being, was to make it, was to tell the story. And there's a line in the film that says that sometimes we have to fall apart to find ourselves all over again. And it's a rediscovery. It's like being okay, not being okay. And I felt like in a lot of ways that I, as a civilian, could possibly, because I've obviously, never been in combat. I could only, relate to some degree as a civilian could to what was shared with us. But I think in finding the commonality and the humanity of that, I think that's something that we carried with us every day on set, because right now what you can't see behind the camera is that there are veterans here, and there's a Gold Star mother who's become like a second mother to me, spoke at my wedding. I went to the White House together with you at a Gold Star family members event. But when we talk about humanity, it's also like experiencing something like Bunny lost her only son, who was killed in action June 4th, 2008, and we'll never have a grandchild. And I've had to experience that and learn an empathy towards somebody who's going through that, who is part of a very exclusive club that they never asked to be a part of, being a Gold Star parent. And I think that just even those small elements that are so huge to the story that you'll see tonight are so important, because so much of the country is just not aware of that, because we do have, thank God, an all-volunteer army and military. We're just disconnected from that. And so our hope with this beautiful film is to bridge that gap between the civilian and the veteran, between the civilian and the Gold Star family member.
Well, that was my last question, was what you hoped this film would accomplish, and I think you just answered that perfectly. So I guess really the only thing I have left to ask you is what's next for this film or for you?
Did you go for it?
No, you go for it.
Okay, so we've been in discussions with distribution, with distributors, and it's really important to us that that this film finds the audience that we know has been underserviced and forgotten. And so the next step for us is finding the right strategic partner for this film. We're continuing on the festival circuit from here for the next 2 or 3 weeks, and then we're doing our push for a theatrical release. But in the meantime, I think it's just important for us to just sort of be present, be here for Minneapolis, to all the wonderful people that have come out to be here for Twin Cities. We've seen this festival grow over the last 15 years. You're coming up on your anniversary very soon. We've been treated like family here. We're so grateful. It's so well organized, and the platform that they have provided to emerging filmmakers and to all the various different stories that are being told here is so key. And I've said this to Jayden, the festival director, earlier today, but this is becoming like a very important pit stop, if not a cornerstone, to the independent filmmaker. And what are you laughing for?
No, I'm like touched. That's actually, it means a lot.
And I really mean this. I mean, what we see behind the curtain is not what you see, right? And so it's important to share this, and how pivotal and how imperative that is to the emerging filmmaker, that a welcoming and warm place like this does exist. And I encourage any filmmaker that will see this interview that you will have a wonderful experience here. You will, it's you're swimming with sharks out there in this business, and coming to this sort of environment is a breath of fresh air. And I implore you, if not encourage you, to submit your film to Twin Cities Film Festival.
Oh my gosh! Wow, thank you so much. I've been working with the festival for 12 years, so honestly, hearing from filmmakers that they're having a great experience with our festival means so much, because we've been able to see it grow throughout the years. So thank you. I don't think we could ask for a better endorsement than that. Thank you both for coming to our festival. We are so excited to screen this movie tonight. So I just want to say thank you again, and we will be back with some more interviews later on.